We're just going to explain how the Q&A will go. If you raise your hands up high and ask your questions loudly and clearly, if we can't hear it, I will repeat them. And we'll try and get as many of your questions in as possible, but without further ado, an incredible film, an incredible man, I'd like to bring the stage director. Questions from the audience. Don't be shy, guys. There you are. Go ahead.
Another terrific Danny Boyle film. I wanted to ask you, how do you go about picking your projects? They're all very, very different, and you always bring something brilliant to them. But how do you go about picking this project, for example?
I first approached Aron Ralston about this in 2006 because I heard the story in 2003 and I read his book and then. But he didn't want to make it in this way then. He wanted to make something more documentary-like, more like Touching the Void, with interviews but I'd always, when I heard about the story and then when I read about it, I'd always imagined it as a kind of immersive first-person experience. That we enter the canyon with him and then we don't leave until he does what he has to do to actually get out. And I always thought that's the only way it will ever work, because I don't think it's possible to watch it in a way, unless you feel like you're going through the experience as well. So we always try to make it as intense as possible, really, and therefore something that is unwatchable, because he cuts his arm off and it actually took him 44 minutes, and if you're going to represent that in any kind of truthful way at all, it's normally unwatchable, except unless you either made it as a horror movie, which obviously is not right, or you actually made it something that you began to feel that maybe you could do it as well. Because that was my belief in the project always, that although people said at a distance, whoa, I could never do that, I always feel we all could do it, because we all would do it, and it's a story that actually isn't about superhero, it's actually about all of us in a way. That was always my take on it, hence the crowds at the end, and that he's swimming back to us, having sort of despised us at the beginning, kind of fleeing from the crowd, and what Joe Simpson calls the living room of anxiety that climbers, put away when they climb. And so that was always the feeling. And just in terms of choosing projects, you just have to follow your nose, really, follow your heart, or whatever the expression is, to what interests you, not what anybody else tells you is. And sometimes they work. I did a film called Sunshine, which I love, and nobody wants to see it. There's an unrepresentative selection of humanity here. Hardly anybody went to see it, and then there's nothing you can do to make people go and see that movie. And then you make Slumdog Millionaire, there's nothing you can do that will stop people going to watch the movie, so it's bizarre anyway.
Another question right up here in the front.
Hi, wonderful film. Hard to watch, but wonderful film. Did Aron really have a camera down there with him?
So the question is, did Aron really have a camera down there with him?
And was that true to anything that he recorded? I mean, I imagine.
And was it true to what was recorded?
Yeah, what's extraordinary about the camera is that it was 2003, which is 3 years before YouTube took off. Now you just accept a camera because everybody posts stuff on YouTube. It's a major form of communication amongst us all in different ways. But yeah, it was 2003, and he recorded everything. He took a camera everywhere with him, both the stills camera and it's the actual camera that you see on there. Canon Allura it's called, if you're interested. The tech geeks, if you're interested. It's all accurate, all that. And he took pictures. At the end, when he takes a picture of his hand left in the rock, if you did a fiction, you'd never believe that. You'd just go, that's ridiculous. But I think you all knew that it must be true, because otherwise we wouldn't have the cheek to do it, But he did do that, and we've got the photograph. In fact, I think the photograph's in his book, the actual photograph he took at that moment. So yes, he did take he hasn't shown many people the video messages because he feels they're very private. We were very lucky, he did show them to myself, Christian, Simon, the writer, and James. And they're extraordinary because they are, I was expecting, especially as he hadn't shown them to anyone, for them to be very abject and very distressing. They're not at all. They're incredibly controlled And of course you realise, as you watch them, what he's doing is he's trying to leave a good impression. Because he knows, and you can see in his eyes, he knows he's going to die. And he doesn't want his mom seeing him, you know, abject. And so they're not moving at all, except deep down they're really moving. A lot of what James says is verbatim, what he actually did say. And there's certain expressions that even a fantastic writer like Sam Boyle would never write, because, you know, the things he says are so formal. Mom and Dad, I really haven't appreciated all the good times we've had together. It's really moving having James do that kind of stuff, you know. So a lot of it is, I mean, we flexed the truth at various moments, and we always told Aron we would do that, but that we would not break the truth. So we flexed it at various moments, like he did go climbing with a couple of girls at the beginning, but they didn't swim in a pool, but we put a pool in because we wanted water at the front and at the end, because it's what he likes, and all those kind of things, and it makes the memory of the girls even more painful for him. And James's extraordinary message, his talk show host, that sort of wasn't, I mean, Aron literally didn't do that, but there are hints in what was going on in his mind that it was something he could easily do. And he did go back over the tapes while he was in the canyon and erased bits of them that he thought didn't quite work, is how he puts it. You know, what he was going through, God only knows, you know, the thought process as you sit there for stand there for 127 hours. So yeah, that was...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question over here in the side.
How did you film it? Was it on location for the entrapment, or?
Yeah, I was just going to repeat the question. I was just asking how it was filmed, being in the entrapment.
We spent 6 days at Blue John Canyon, which is where he got trapped, and we filmed there for those 6 days, and we camped out because it's very difficult to get to. And I love camping. It's 33 years since I've last been camping, so you can tell how much I love camping. And it will be 33 years before I ever go camping again as well. So, but we did camp out, and we were very responsible. Aron made sure that we didn't leave any trash around or anything like that. You have to be very careful with all that stuff. I'm not really a wilderness guy, as you can probably tell. And then what we did is the production designer, Sutter at the Lab, who did the costumes as well, she did the costumes on Slumdog, and she did the costumes on Sunshine, the film that nobody went to watch apart from its own representative Sunshine. She radar scanned the canyon, and then they can do that these days, and they can repeat it exactly from these radar scans. And we built it, an exact replica of it, in a factory, an old warehouse in Salt Lake City. But we sealed it so that we had to obey the rules as though we were in the canyon. There was no part of it that came away, or you were locked in there. And we used these small cameras, SI2Ks, that we'd used on Slumdog to follow James, really, and this vocabulary developed where he would do these incredible long takes, and the cameramen, Anthony Dodmantle and Enrique Chadiak, would follow him, really. And then we would edit down these 20, 30-minute takes into what you saw, you know, like 20 seconds or 2 minutes or something like that. And that's what gives it... If we did it any other way, it felt fake, really. It felt you needed to feel that James was really physically going through this ordeal and trying to do things with his left hand. So we didn't have, like, prop masters coming on and helping him rig the pulley or, you know, the rope. He had to do all that. And he cursed, because it's hard, you know? But he wasn't allowed to cheat, so...
It's right here in the black t-shirt.
Yeah, did you immediately think of James Franco, or what was that process like?
He's not a lookalike, and he probably wouldn't be who you'd first think of. But I remember thinking very carefully, we've got one guy in this, and he's going to have to sort of play a lot of characters. He's going to have to create variety himself, because we're not going to have that variety, because there's no one to cut to, And so I thought about him, because I thought about that range of work he does that can go from something like Pineapple Express, through Milk, through the James Dean, City in the Sea, Spider-Man. I mean, he's like, you know, you think, he's not like a star actor that just plays himself the whole time. He pushes it, you know? And so that was great. And what we did is we met him, and he has this, he appears to be asleep a lot of the time. Kind of stoned, really. It's a front, and he's checking you out, believe you me, he's very sharp. But we asked him to read a bit of it, and then he read it, and it was extraordinary. And he read that actual message. Was the lady who was asking about the messages? He read that message about to his mum and dad. He read that for us young, and it was just like, we knew then, Christian and I met him, we kind of knew it was him, you know, and we're very lucky to get him, because it's, you know, he has that kind of thing that I guess the major movie stars have, where you can kind of live with them, you know, they have a kind of grace somehow, beautiful face, whatever, but, you know, you just can live with them somehow. And yet he can also push things quite extreme, so we were very lucky to get him, I think.
Question over here?
This movie is based on a real-life story. I know your other movies are based on either novels or original screenplays, and I was wondering if you had a different approach coming to material that's based on real life.
The question is just asking the fact that this is based on a true story. What materials were used and actually to develop it? How did he approach the film?
It's interesting because I tried to do a real life story actually in Toronto. I set up this film about that fire in Worcester in Massachusetts, where those firemen died. And it fell apart at the end, and because it's always a very difficult negotiation around, especially tragedy in people's lives, and the real people are left. And we consulted Aron vigorously about the script. We didn't take all his notes. We kept our own individual responsibility as well. We didn't hand everything over to him. It's very important that you're not intimidated, as well as being respectful. You mustn't be intimidated, because your actor has to feel free. You know, you can't have the actor having a shadow over him. Because I think when we watch a movie, it's weird. We don't really remember characters' names. We remember that guy, James Franco playing that guy, what was he called in Pineapple Express? You know, and you were, do you know what I mean? And that relationship is with Franco, who's in that canyon with, playing a guy called Aron, and oh my God, he loses his knife. Oh no, and do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not with the documentary version of it. So we were very respectful with Aron, and he helped us a lot technically, and then we made the film, and then we showed it to him. And he was, we promised him that it would be emotionally honest to his story, and that he'd be proud of it, and that we would hand the story back to him at the end, you know, that we wouldn't hijack it or anything like that. So that's what we tried to do. It was a way of working.
Yeah, the pace of the editing was so essential to the film. Can you talk about your editors and the decisions that you made going through that?
He's a guy called John Harris, and yeah, he did it amazing. It's really interesting. The triptychs are all very well, and they're very nice in title sequences, but when you integrate them into the drama, they're very tricky, because you have to balance the three, because it's weird, they go wrong sometimes, and they're like, and you've got to kind of balance the three, and he did an amazing job on that. Yeah, so the guy who edited Slumdog Millionaire, Chris Dickens, wasn't available. He was doing, I think it's called Paul. Do anybody know about this? It's the sci-fi movie by the guys who did Hot Fuzz and yeah, so they're editing that about the alien visiting Earth, the comedy. So he wasn't available. So John Harris was available, and Christian knew him because he edited The Descent for Christian. There he is. So he'd edited The Descent for Christian, and he'd just come off Kick-Ass, I think. And he just edited Kick-Ass. He'd just come off that. So he's very interesting and brought a very...
Scene in it.
We had that sequence in it. And then he came in with this amazing idea that he would visit this girl. You know, that his chance to get out, he would go to this girl, and then it turns out that he gets there and he can't speak because he has... You know, that's the journey he has to go on. He has been, as I hope you saw in the basketball scene, he's been not cruel, but careless with her affection, really, and not considerate or careful enough of it. And that's something that a journey he has to go on, he has to learn through the film before he can get released, really. And I think that is true to Aron. Simon sort of spent a lot of time with Aron digging away at tough stuff like that with him, and I think he sort of accepts that was something, that a journey that he had to go on as well, to appreciate people, really.
I want to thank you all. Thanks for the Q&A.